Bhagavatam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shunvatam Spakata Krishna Punyashravana Kirtana Hidayantosti Bhadrani Vidunoti Suhrutsatam Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So we are continuing our discussion of the first canto, and the previous week there was a discussion very specifically on the 7th chapter of the first canto. And the 7th chapter of the first canto, to summarize, is a very, very intense chapter, because in the 7th chapter, you also have the tribulations of the most intense kind being imposed upon the Pandavas. One, they have just gone through an intense war. And after going through an intense war, and after the war has ended, in one sense, when something ends, something of a major incident, when it ends in life, it is general tendency of individuals to give up resistance. You become somewhat less defensive. You become more accepting of the environment, because during war, there were so many unfortunate outcomes that you always brace for the worst news. You're constantly worried about what could come your way. And then you're on the edge for as many days as the war has progressed. The day the war is ended, the day the war ends, it's a general tendency. The day something very intense ends in life, the general tendency is to somewhat, have some closure, get it over with, move on with life, take stock of what exactly has transpired. Most people rationalize to some extent. Some cannot rationalize, but everybody tries to rationalize. They make an attempt to rationalize their experiences. If it's a very negative experience, then they try to rationalize it so that they could pacify the emotions, pacify the mind. They rationalize through different means. So the process of closure, when an intense experience goes on, is needed. And in most cases, all defenses, all emotional defenses, all kinds of defenses which would prepare you to take on any shocking news has been given up when an event is ending. So in other words, the war had ended. The great Mahabharata war, Kurukshetra war, had ended. So the defenses were completely weak. In other words, they were basically accepting what was left over, and they were ready to move on with life. Just at that time, you notice in the 7th chapter that the Pandavas lose all their children. Abhimanyu was already lost, and the remaining 5 sons of Draupadi were killed in one night. It was devastating. That is what was observed in the previous chapter. Now, the previous chapter also gave us a lot of clues in terms of the general consciousness that's prevalent in elevated souls who are specifically being glorified in Scripture. Scripture has to be understood fully. The first Veda, the undivided Veda, was the Yajur Veda. The undivided Veda was the Yajur Veda. Srila Vyasadeva divides Yajur Veda into 4 parts. And those 4 parts are Yajur, Rig, Sama, and Atharva Veda. So first, can people go on mute, please? So the 4 Vedas come from Yajur Veda. The derivation of the 4 Vedas is from Yajur Veda. So initially there was just the Yajur Veda, and then it was divided into 4 parts. And the 4 parts of the Vedas were Yajur, Rig, Sama, and Atharva. Now, along with the initial body of knowledge, which was the Yajur Veda, there was also a vast amount of account of Puranas, history, Itihas. So there were many, many aspects that were also associated with Yajur Veda, where there were poems, there were histories, historical narrations of events, which are basically how the Vedas were enacted. And then there was also historical accounts, then the Puranas. All of this were combined with the original Yajurveda. So Srila Vyasadeva divided the original Yajurveda into 4 parts. Then he took all the history and the Puranas, and then all of that body of knowledge became known as the 5th Veda in reality. So the Mahabharata found its place in the 5th Veda. As a consequence of being a part of the original Yajurveda, it took its place in the 5th Veda category of histories, Purana, Itihasa, etc. Now, what is important is when certain personalities, lifestyles, and certain personalities, moods, and reactions to life are being discussed at the level of the Vedas, then one has to understand that not only would it be extraordinary, but it is also something which is supposed to act as a precept for us. We need to follow such as a precept. This is very important. So what we need to do is we need to account for the fact that the Mahabharata was spoken and it was basically arranged as a part of the original Vedic compilation. It belonged to the category of the 5th Vedas. And as a consequence, one needs to understand that this entire compilation by Srila Vyasadeva and this accounting of Mahabharata as well was meant to be an extraordinary, I would say, educational experience for those who are coming in touch with it. So in other words, the personalities of Mahabharata were supposed to educate us on the principles of the Vedas themselves. They were an extension. So how do you face an intense experience? How do you keep your faith during an intense experience? What is it that you do when you're met with this intense experience? How do you move on? What is it that you do? What precepts do you have to follow? You see, only if complex scenarios arise in life can you actually test a theory. Testing a theory, even a philosophical theory, testing even a spiritual, I would say, statement, the real proof in the pudding, as we would call it, occurs when circumstances become very complex. It's easy to apply when the going is good. How do you apply a principle when the going is bad? How do you apply a principle when it is distinctly unbearable? The 7th chapter displayed circumstances which typically would have made anybody's life miserable. Losing children, losing all 5 children overnight. And then how are you supposed to react to this particular circumstance? What principles are you supposed to derive? Because your emotions are not in order. You're not normal anymore because you've just been given a very devastating blow. How do you react to this? How do you basically pacify your emotions? What is it that you're going to do to tell yourself about faith? How do you even envision a future? Because no one would have any thought of the future. They would feel like dying themselves because the suffering and the intensity of grief would be such that they would say, take me as well, because I can't stand this grief. How do you cope with all of this? Now, this forms the body of knowledge where you're being shown exactly what is possible if you're in a human body. So this is great motivation for a human being who wants to follow the path of the Vedas and the conclusion of the Vedas, where the motivation is being given on what do you need to do and what kind of consciousness can you maintain while being in this body, and what will it allow you to do in the negative circumstances. So we saw several things. We not only saw in the previous chapter that the Pandavas and Draupadi, they were grieving. Grief is normal. Lamentation is normal. Grief and lamentation are a part of normal responses to tragedy. So one can't really say that elevation means one shouldn't even cry. It doesn't work that way. Grief and lamentation are a part of an experience. It is a matter of being able to express oneself in certain ways. The more important part about grief, lamentation, and negative events is what you do after the fact. Do we break down and do nothing about life? Do we give up faith? Do we throw away whatever we thought was important and then we sit and say that nothing matters anymore? Or do we continue the process of building faith even though we have been put to such an extraordinary test. Now, that was seen in the 7th chapter. What was seen was that, most importantly, there was grief, there was intense anger, there was indignation that someone could do this to me, but we also saw higher principles emerge. We saw a principle of being able to forgive under intense circumstances emerge. We saw a principle of being able to accept the circumstance, because you can't really forgive unless the suffering has ended. There can be great pain. We spoke about this. There can be great pain, but suffering and pain are two different things. There can be great pain. The pain can continue while suffering has ended. Someone can experience further pain, but the suffering from such pain can end. Yeah? Can you kindly put yourself on mute, please?
Yeah.
The other aspect to it is not only the matter of suffering ending. Sometimes the pain could have ended. Sometimes the pain could have ended, but the suffering can continue. Both can happen. Sometimes we are in pain and we continue having pain due to circumstances of life, but we don't suffer because we have an opportunity to elevate ourselves and to resolve the suffering in certain ways that we basically don't suffer. Again, going back to the basics, suffering does not occur in the higher levels of consciousness. In the higher modes of goodness, suffering does not occur. The extent to which the mode of goodness is contaminated by passion and ignorance, suffering can occur. The extent to which the mode of goodness is not contaminated by passion and ignorance, suffering does not occur. Even as someone basically elevates themselves, they don't suffer as much. That is the reason why it is said that genuine Brahmanas, not only because they are in knowledge, more so because their consciousness is of a higher nature, they have the ability to digest and process life. Because their consciousness is of a higher nature, they have the ability to process events in life in such a way that the events themselves don't disrupt life. That's the nature of a Brahmana. A Brahmana's nature is such that they are in the mode of goodness. They have the ability to process life. Because they are processing life, they don't suffer. Even if there's pain, they don't suffer. It is said that a Brahmana can fast, they can perform austerities. Why is it so? Because the body consciousness is very less, relatively less. A Kshatriya who is in deep passion, they cannot perform heavy austerities in terms of fasting. They can't do it because their bodies are such that their passion will want them to fulfill the desires. That is the reason why when Kshatriyas have to go away for tapasya, it's considered a big deal. That is the reason why Bhishma Dev's vow of celibacy was considered a very big deal, because he was a Kshatriya. He was completely in passion, pure passion. As a consequence, someone who is in pure passion, whose nature and whose body is filled with passion, if he takes a vow of celibacy, it's considered to be a very big deal. So the Brahmana who is in the mode of goodness is capable of austerity. He is capable of rationalizing. He is capable of resolving issues. And even if there is a lot of pain, he can bring down the suffering and he can eliminate it. So he may have pain. He or she may have pain, but may not experience suffering. Sometimes the pain could have ended, the suffering continues. This is the other side of the story. The pain would end, and then the suffering would just continue even though the pain is absent. People continue to suffer and suffer and suffer even though an event could have occurred many, many years ago. The pain would have ended, but the suffering just continues. They can't really resolve the issue. Now, these are all different levels of processing issues, and we were being able to see that because this is the fifth Veda, because Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all the Vedas, it is a natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. The chapters of Srimad Bhagavatam will give you clues on how to process life. So we saw an extraordinary foundation yesterday. We saw in the previous week. We saw intense grief. At intense grief, Draupadi, who is a woman, who is a mother, who has just lost her children, is rationalizing at a time when her children's bodies are still there. She's rationalizing, saying, don't kill this man. He's a Brahmana. He is the son of your spiritual master. You should not be depriving Kripi. Dronacharya's wife is Kripi. You should not deprive Kripi of her son. I'm suffering because my children have been killed. Don't deprive Kripi. Don't kill Ashwatthama. Don't remove him from her view. How do you rationalize all of this? Because now you cannot rationalize unless you're situated beyond the level where you are suffering. Yeah? Pain can be there. Understand this. Being in a material body, being in a subtle body which is distinctly connected to matter, pain will be there because it's a matter of coming in touch with whatever it is. There's destruction all the time. Pain can be there, but there isn't much suffering which is being seen in these particular reactions. The reason why I'm bringing this up again and again is because these are extraordinary circumstances and we have to learn from them. This is just not ordinary history. What is it which is being shown to us? Shastra, when it is talking to us, is basically telling us, understand that this is possible. Shastra is telling us, understand that this is possible. You are on this path, you are coming in touch with Shastra. Shastra is basically telling us, yes, it has happened before, so it's possible. You have capacity for such endeavor. You have capacity for such activities. Does it make sense? It is more a matter of preparing us and telling us that you can handle this because you're a human being. This has happened before. Someone went through this difficulty and they processed this difficulty in such an efficient, wonderful manner. You have capacity for this. Shastra is basically telling us how to prepare for life. It is preparing us for experiences. It is going to give us knowledge as to how to process it. If we are suffering, then it is going to tell us what to do in terms of removing the suffering. Elevating our consciousness is the only solution. If we are suffering, it's because we are very much in touch with passion, ignorance. As we elevate ourselves through the process of devotional service into higher levels of consciousness, then one has an immediate capacity to resolve suffering. Why? Because at the higher levels of consciousness, when it's absent, passion and ignorance, when you're in goodness, even if you have pain, it doesn't affect you much. It doesn't. You can basically have a lot which is going on in life, but yet it doesn't affect you. If someone is transcendentally situated, it doesn't touch them. It doesn't touch them. That's why it's a matter of surprise. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lost his father, it is said that he was lamenting like an ordinary human being. Yeah, he was lamenting like an ordinary human being. It's a matter of surprise. Why? He is transcendental. He is the Supreme Lord. Why is he having an emotional response which is just like an ordinary human being? He is also showing the vulnerability of being in a body which is a part of this world. His body was completely transcendental. He was showing us what is the vulnerability. He's also going through it. Lord Ram was in lamentation when he heard of the passing of Dasharath Maharaj. He was in lamentation to some extent due to the separation of Mother Sita. In other words, there were experiences of separation. This is Yogamaya's tendency. When the Lord is involved, it is not Mahamaya. When the Lord is involved, it is not the lower modes of passion, ignorance. This is Yogamaya operating. When the Lord is involved, he is interacting with the whole existence through Yogamaya, through the energy which is internal, not external. As a consequence, the experiences which the Lord undergoes of separation, intensity with his devotees is also an experience arranged by Yogamaya for his pleasure and for the devotee's pleasure. But it is being shown. So it's quite extraordinary. So what we saw in the previous week is now being extended into a subsequent chapter. And in this chapter, we want to examine a certain attitude. What is very important for us to understand, that Mahaprabhu did not give us more than two things. What did he give us? He gave us Harinam. And after giving us Harinam, Mahaprabhu also gave us a certain code. What is the code which Mahaprabhu gave us in addition to Harinam? What was it which Mahaprabhu gave us in addition to Harinam? What did he give us?
Love of God, Prabhuji.
Sorry, speak up.
Hare Krishna. Is it love of God? Godhead?
No, love of God is the goal of Harinam. Yes. What else did he give us? For as a matter of sadhana, what did he give us?
Mahamantra?
Yes. What else? I'm saying yes, Harinam is Mahamantra, but what else as a matter of sadhana? Mahaprabhu gave us two things. One, he gave us Harinam. And then he told us follow the Sikshashtakam very, very clearly. He only wrote Sikshashtakam. In the Sikshashtakam prayers, what is the prayer that we normally chant, which is important? Trinadapi sunichena, taroriva sahishnuna, amani manadena kirtane sadahari. He said, I've given you kirtan, now I'm giving you a process to be able to do kirtan without any break. I'm giving you kirtan, and I'm also giving you something for you to be able to do kirtan without any break. Yeah? This is very important for us to understand. I'm giving you kirtan, and I'm also giving you something for you to be able to do kirtan. Kirtaniya sadahari. This is very important for us to understand that it was given to us as a combination. It was not just one. And what is the specific essence of that particular verse? Trinadapi sunichena, taroriva sahishnuna, amani manadena kirtaniya sadahari. The specific essence of the verse is that along with the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, you also need to learn to accept life as an arrangement of Krishna. This is humility. When we start accepting life as an arrangement of Krishna, then this is called humility. This is basically humility, where it allows us to transform. It basically allows us to transform and process events in life to make advancement. That is what was seen in the previous chapter. In the previous chapter, we saw two things. There was Kirtaniya Sadahari. Krishna was with the Pandavas, so there was glorification of Krishna. There was constant interaction with Krishna. There was service to Krishna. There was Kirtaniya Sadahari. How did it happen? It also happened with Trinadapi Sunichena. These were very powerful Kshatriyas. Very powerful Kshatriyas. Very, very powerful. And being Kshatriya means being able to basically extend a lot of authority. But despite being so powerful, the Pandavas, they were glorious because they had an extraordinary quality of being able to accept life as if they have been arranged by Krishna. What is it very unusual about Pandavas? What is very unusual about Pandavas is, Srila Prabhupada writes about it too in our purports. Mother Devaki went through challenges when she was giving birth to her children. She was put into prison by Kamsa. This was one event. The moment she was freed from prison, it was over. There were no more tribulations. She was put into prison and then she was having children. And once she was freed from prison, it was over. But that is not the case with the Pandavas. The Pandavas were going through one problem after another throughout their lives. If you read history, you will understand they were going through challenges from childhood. They had problems from childhood. There was constant machination, constant manipulation and attacks by the enemies. Constant. It was practically no gap. They were suffering in and out. All through, they were suffering in the sense that they were going through experiences which were bad, inauspicious in one sense. What is extraordinary is that they could always engage in the service of Krishna, Kirtaniya Sadahari. So what is it that we understand? They have been accepting the circumstances of their life all along as an arrangement of Krishna. They just accept the circumstances of their life. So there is real principle of Trinadapi Sunichena is being seen in the lives of the Pandavas. They are practicing devotional service. They are practicing devotional service of being loyal, surrendered to Krishna. But along with this devotional service, you will notice this extraordinary quality of being completely humble despite being so powerful. What is humility? Humility is being able to accept life as an arrangement of Krishna. Every day in the morning, accepting that this is life, this is what has been arranged by the Lord, I'm going to use today to the best capacity possible to serve Him. This is humility. This is humility. The unacceptance of life. When we start thinking that something is happening to us without Krishna's supervision, then that is wrong. Because then we start having our own doubts. We start worrying about whether Krishna has made an arrangement, has not made an arrangement. Imagine going through challenges throughout life and yet being very faithful, yet being dependent on the Master. Wouldn't there be doubts in the mind that Krishna, under your watch, while we were considering you our dear friend, when we were considering you our dear cousin, when you were a part of our lives, dear Krishna, we went through so much. We went through so much. Who will have faith? Who will have faith if they were going to go through so much when Krishna was present in their lives? This is the case with devotees. You have to be very, very understanding of the fact that Krishna consciousness is not karma. It is not mundane religion. You're not practicing. The precept of Krishna consciousness is not to practice Krishna consciousness for the purpose of solving issues of life. No. The side benefit is that the issues of life would be highly minimized. That's true. Anxieties would go down. Issues of life would be minimized. If you're practicing properly, then the anxiety levels go down. Issues of life are minimized. That is the truth. However, that is not the objective. The objective of Krishna consciousness is not to manage issues of life. It is not. So now what we are seeing here and what we are trying to understand is sometimes we can go into this tangent. We can start thinking that why are we going through these struggles? I'm chanting my 16 rounds. I'm doing my bit. I go for Mangalati many days in a week. I do my service when I'm being called upon. Why am I going through such a big challenge? Why is it that I'm going through challenge after challenge after challenge? What is it which is happening to me? Sometimes we start thinking that the process of Krishna consciousness is not working. Why? Because I'm not peaceful. The process of Krishna consciousness is not working because I'm supposed to be peaceful. I'm supposed to be freed from all these problems. Isn't that the purpose of religion? Yes, it is the purpose of religion. But Krishna consciousness is not religion. The ultimate goal of Krishna consciousness is not peace. We should not try and set such a low goal for something which is so lofty. The ultimate goal of Krishna consciousness is for us to be able to experience prema. Now we see in the lives of the Pandavas, they were practically with Krishna. Krishna was with them. You go through tribulation after tribulation, challenge after challenge, right from childhood. Despite being so powerful, how do you accept life? How do you accept life? How do you accept the presence of God? Because they were not Vrajvasis. In Vrindavan, no one believes Krishna is God. They love him. They don't love him for the purpose of what he can do for them. That is our life. That is our life. This is Krishna consciousness. There's a different degree with the Pandavas. The Pandavas know he is God. They can basically know that he can, by just a mere wish, cancel out everything. He can grant them anything he wants, anything they want. They know it. They know it very surely. But how is it that you stick around with your faith day in and day out when you're being put through tribulations? This is Trinadapi Sunichena. The message of Trinadapi Sunichena, Tarori Vasaishnuna, where you become tolerant as a tree and you become humble as a blade of grass. What is humility for someone who is very powerful like Arjun? What is humility? If someone is a beggar and he's inconsequential overall in terms of the standing in life, standing in society, for them to be humble is no big deal because you are in a situation where you're constantly going to be at the mercy of others. But if someone is an emperor, if someone is so skilled in warfare that he can conquer the whole planet, he can put down anybody he wants, he can challenge the demigods, he can do anything. If someone is so powerful and he has that nature because he's in the body of a Kshatriya, so he also has a nature, he has a certain conditioning. How does he accept life? How does he accept this arrangement saying, how is this possible for this? Yeah, they keep accepting it. This is humility because they accept everything that's been arranged. They practically accept anything and everything that has been arranged as the arrangement of the Lord, as a mercy of the Lord. They accept everything as the mercy of the Lord. This is humility. But they don't give up. There's a big difference between being humble and being inefficient. They don't give up. They just don't give up. They try and do their very best. They accept everything as being arranged by Krishna. They accept it, saying, okay, Krishna, you wouldn't have allowed this to happen unless it was necessary. Because you allowed it to happen, I will accept it as your arrangement, regardless. But they act upon it as well, very effectively. So it is not a matter of just saying, okay, I will just sit inactively, I will do nothing, let life just go on. This is Krishna's arrangement. That doesn't work. You will have to do what is necessary for life at all circumstances. Make your best attempt. Whatever is your best attempt, it doesn't have to be what someone else thinks it's your best attempt. Whatever is your best attempt has to be happening in addition to accepting things as they are. So humility is being defined as accepting life as arranged by Krishna and also having the courage to act upon it. This is basically the definition of humility. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur defines humility as having no expectations, which is also very much the case with Pandavas. They have no expectations of Krishna. They're constantly, basically accepting life. They are not thinking that I am friends with Krishna. He is the Supreme Lord. He is basically so powerful, he could do anything. They're not thinking that way. There's a different attitude altogether. So this is very extraordinary to see that Kirtaniya Sadahari, where Krishna himself desires the company of such devotees, is being seen here. Why does he desire? Why is he consider the Pandavas so close to him? Why does he consider the Pandavas to be so dear to him? Is because of this attitude of being able to be grateful. Regardless of what happened, being able to be grateful. Now that becomes the topic of the 8th chapter. In the 8th chapter begins, and we'll just read through it now. The 8th chapter begins with basically the basically the 7th chapter ends with the funeral ceremonies of the 5 children of Draupadi and the other relatives. Now the 8th chapter basically is entitled Prayers by Queen Kuntī and Parīkṣit Saved. So we'll just read through some of the Sanskrit and the translations. We'll try and see how much we could cover today within the time given. Sutta uvacha atate samprate nanam swanam udakam ichyatam datum sakshna gangayam purushakritya yahustriyaha. Translation. Sutta Goswami said, thereafter, the Pandavas, desiring to deliver water to the dead relatives who had desired it, went to the Ganges with Draupadi. The ladies walked in front. So they went to basically offer oblations of water, Ganga Jal, oblations of Ganga Jal, basically water from Ganga, to the relatives who had passed away. So they went, all of them gathered together and they went. Having lamented, text 2. Te niniyodakam sarve vilapya cha brasham punah apluta hari padabja raja putah sarijjale. Having lamented over them and sufficiently offered Ganges water, they bathed in the Ganges, whose water is sanctified due to being mixed with the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. Why is Ganga Jal so important? Why is Ganga so important? Is because basically there are two things. When you offer water, which is tarpan, when you offer water to the ancestors, that water has the ability to cleanse our influence, our emotions from the influence of the people who have passed away. The whole concept, this is not how the relatives, this is not basically what is being said in the verse, but I'm giving a little explanation as to what the process is. When you have someone in your family, in the ancestry, let us assume that there was a person in the ancestry who was not devoted, who had all kinds of challenges in terms of bad habits. If someone like that was in our ancestry and he passes away, such a person's influence of consciousness and karma can influence us at a subtle level. His karma or her karma can influence us today, even though they're ancestors. When we offer water, we are literally cleansing our consciousness of such influences. This water being offered to the ancestors is basically cleansing our consciousness as well of the influence of those in the family who have passed away. It's quite complex. It's quite complex because imagine 10 centuries back, you're in a lineage where 10 centuries back there was someone who was very sinful. The amount of sin that person has done can add on to the influence that we are having on ourselves. There can be subtle influences. By washing away and offering water in oblation to the ancestors, we call this Pitru Tarpan, offering water We are cleansing the influence of such a personality on us. This is not a process of devotional service. When you chant the holy names, you're cleansing everything. But I'm giving you an example as to why this whole idea of offering water is there in the Shastra for ancestors. Because you can't see the ancestors. The ancestors are already gone. Pitra Tarpan is being offered. You go to the Ganga, you take armfuls of water, then you offer it to the ancestors, and then you pour it in the Ganga, flowing river. Why do you do it? You do it because you practically have the ability to cleanse yourself of their influence. Sometimes it is not auspicious. If you even think of it, there could be people in the family who are not devotees. They could have had all kinds of bad habits. Yeah, those sinful reactions become a part of us when we are born in such a family. And that influence is very subtle. It's not perceptible. It is there. It can influence you. It can push you in certain directions. That is the reason why these annual ceremonies and this, monthly offering of water is being recommended as a part of the Varnashrama Dharma, where people offer this water every month on certain days for people who have departed in the family. This is a matter of cleansing oneself. For us, the biggest cleansing process is coming in touch with Krishna through the holy names, through service. Yeah, if you have deities, when you worship them, all kinds of purification occurs as a secondary benefit while we are developing relationships with Krishna. That is not a matter of concern for devotees as much as it is for those who are non-devotees. Yeah, it is a very big deal. That's why when people go to the Ganga and they offer oblations, they are basically offering oblations to cleanse themselves of the influence as well. So they are offering the water to the Pitris. There is a certain debt which is owed to them because we are born in a certain lineage, because we have been given a place in the family. We have to give them back something. As a consequence, we perform these rites. However, what I'm trying to say is, this is the reason for doing it. It is not a rite which has no meaning. It has great meaning. There's literally great meaning in terms of cleansing ourselves from the influences, because those influences are bad. You see, you could be born in a family which is very sinful, and you would have problems in life because the family is influencing you. Someone in the family has done something, then it is going to be a part of our lives. This is not a major concern for devotees if you're seriously practicing Krishna consciousness. It is not. I don't want you to start thinking there's a problem there, but I do want you to understand that this is an issue otherwise. And that's the reason why there are rules and regulations in Varnashram in terms of how to deal with people who have passed away. What do you do on an annual basis? This whole Shraddha, Pitri Tarpan, all of this process is basically cleansing for those who are left behind, so that those who have departed don't linger around, they don't influence us. Their burden doesn't become our burden. This is important because it's a matter of consciousness. Depends on how people live lives. So it's important to know the family and so on and so forth. Anyways, this is a sidetrack, but I was wanting to explain the process because it is to be known. The second part to it is why Ganga? What is so special about the Ganga Jal? Ganga Jal is so special because it is Charnamrit. It is Charnamrit because she is personified Charnamrit. If you wear tilak with Ganga Jal before you start chanting Maha Mantra, then the effect of being able to chant in an undisturbed manner is very high. It is very high. You have to try it. Sri Ganga Devi is so purifying, just remembering her, using the water to put tilak on the body before you start chanting the holy names, using the water for achaman before you start chanting the holy names. It can shift consciousness quite perceptibly, and the chanting of the holy names can become even better. She's so powerful. She's so powerful. It's a miracle. It's a miracle almost in terms of many, many years. There's been such neglect of Ganga, such neglect of Mother Ganga, Ganga Devi, Gangaji. There's such neglect of Yamuna, Ganga, that basically one would think that there will be no effect practically. But even now, if you were to go and take a dip in the Ganga, then you come out purified, you come out quite lighter, you can perceive it. Now they're cleaning Gangaji. They're cleaning, the whole process has started quite effectively. But I'm just trying to tell you that there is a reason, because this is the Charnamrit. There is one more reason. This is not well known. In the Bhagavatam, one of the greatest concerns Sri Ganga had One of the greatest concerns which Sri Ganga had before descending to the earth was she said, if I descend to the earth, I am Charanamrit. I am going to purify all whoever comes in touch because I'm Charanamrit. But if everybody who is sinful start taking a dip in my waters, then how will that particular sinful reaction be removed from the water? This was a concern which was presented by Mother Ganga. Mother Ganga literally said that if people come with sinful reactions and they dump all the sin on me while having a dip in the waters, who is going to remove that? How is that going to be removed? I am Charanamrit, no doubt. I'm going to purify. But that fear is there that there can be such extraordinary amount of sin that can be dumped on me. How is it going to be removed? Then Sri Bhagirath, he basically assures her that great saintly personalities will also be having a bath in your waters. Great saintly personalities will also be having a bath in your waters. The having a bath by saintly personalities in your waters will counter the sinful reactions of those who basically have had a bath in your waters. So the counter to the sin, even in Gangaji, is sadhu sangha. Can you just imagine? Can you imagine the power of a sadhu is such that they can purify Gangaji? This is Charanamrit. This is Charanamrit flowing from the lotus feet of the Lord, and she is so powerful. If you just come in touch with her, it is so powerful that your chanting and everything will be on a different level altogether if you know her powers, if you understand and perceive her powers. But she is explaining, what will I do if everybody comes and dumps sin on me? Yeah? The answer being given is, don't worry. Sadhus will also be having a bath. Their potency of coming in touch with you will counteract the negativity put by others who are not sadhus. So sadhu sangha is important for even Gangaji. Can you imagine that? That's the reason why when we want to have a dip in Ganga, we go to Tirthastan. We go to special places where sadhus gather. You have association of sadhus. You hear from them as well. But if you have association of sadhus and you're also with sadhus and sadhus are having a dip, that place has a lot of potency. So if you have a bath, for example, in the Ganga in Mayapur, you will notice a big difference because most people literally who have a bath in the Ganga there, in the Ganga which is flowing there, in near Mayapur, are chanting Harinam. These are devotees. And you will immediately find the body being purified. You will immediately perceive some lightness come onto you because a big load of sin has just been removed from your shoulders. Immediately. So it's a great good fortune to come in touch with Mother Ganga. Even greater good fortune to come in touch with Mother Ganga in a place where the Vaishnavas reside and they are chanting the holy names. So this is so powerful to understand. So the text 3. Tatrasinam kurupatim Dhritarashtram sahanujam Gandharim putra shokatam Pratam Krishnam chamadavaha. There sat the king of the Kurus, Maharaj Yudhishthir, along with his younger brothers and Dhritarashtra, Gandhari, Kuntī, and Draupadi, all overwhelmed with grief. Lord Krishna was also there. This is also the other reason. Sometimes when you go near a holy place, there are people who come with great grief. When they're all there and they're having a bath, you will find that the water carries the grief. It's without a fact. Without a doubt. Some grief would also be there as a part of it. It is being countered by those who are potent. So sometimes you hear that the Lord participated in certain pastimes. Sometimes you hear that he was near certain places. Krishna used to have a lot of pastimes near Yamunaji. Yamunaji is here, and Krishna used to have a lot of pastimes in the waters. And the fact that he was in the waters practically eliminates any kind of concern in terms of basically coming in touch with things which are contaminated, because he was already there. So eternally, there is great auspiciousness in coming in touch with the rivers. Text 4. Shantavyam asamunibir hatabandun suchara pitan bhuteshu kalasya gatim darshayanna prakriti kriyam. Citing the stringent laws of the Almighty, and their reactions upon living beings, Lord Sri Krishna and the Munis began to pacify those who were shocked and affected. So Krishna was there at this hour of grief. There was great lamentation. Mother Gandhari was there. She had lost all her sons. Draupadi, all her sons. Mother Kuntī, who had lost so many relatives, she had lost Karna, her son. There was so much grief that Krishna and the different saintly personalities who were there were beginning to pacify them by giving them some solace by their presence and as well as words. Sadayatva ajata shatruho swam rajyam kitavairhatam gatayat vasato rajnyah kachap sparshak shatayushah. Translation. The clever Duryodhana and his party cunningly usurped the kingdom of Yudhishthira, who had no enemy. He had no enemy. Why is Yudhishthira being called Ajata Shatru? Why is he being called Ajata Shatru? He had no enemies because he was completely non-envious. He had no envy at all towards anyone. The clever Duryodhana and his party cunningly usurped the kingdom of Yudhishthira, who had no enemy. By the grace of the Lord, the recovery was executed, and the unscrupulous kings who joined with Duryodhana were killed by him. Others also died, the duration of life having decreased for the rough handling of the hair of Queen Draupadi. This is a very important verse. Several reasons. Number one, when you arrange life, when we arrange life with our planning, with our interests, with our objectives, such a life may or may not cooperate and align itself with Krishna consciousness. There is no guarantee that if we only think about what we ought to do in life, we educate ourselves in a certain way, we get employed in a certain way, bring in money in a certain way, there is no guarantee that life is going to cooperate with Krishna consciousness. Our objective of Krishna consciousness, if it is being challenged every day by how we have arranged life, understand that we haven't really arranged life based on our desires, based on Krishna's desires. We have arranged life based on our desires, based on, kind of some level of separation from Krishna consciousness. When we arrange life without considering Krishna consciousness, we may find Krishna consciousness very difficult because of the arrangements of life. However, when one is completely surrendered, Krishna removes all that is troublesome in life and then rearranges our life to his liking. When Krishna is making such an arrangement, then that kind of life can never interfere with Krishna consciousness. Before the Mahabharata war, it is said that Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, they were ruling Indraprastha. They had so many different challenges. And those challenges, in combination with the opulences which they had, could have been a distraction in Krishna consciousness because it was arranged by them. After the war was not won purely by the Pandavas. It was won because they were aligned with Krishna and Krishna was there. So when life gets arranged by Krishna and he practically arranges what you ought to do, even a great kingdom can't distract a person. It is normally said that a king is very distracted. Why is he distracted? Can anybody understand why a king would be distracted? Why is a king considered to be in a problematic situation as far as Krishna consciousness is concerned? Why is a king's position problematic as far as Krishna consciousness is concerned? Anybody?
Hare Krishna, because he might be
Yes.
distracted by all other arrangements, like material arrangements. He can get distracted easily. And also
Yes.
a lot of responsibilities towards others. So,
okay, responsibilities towards others, and he could be basically very preoccupied with so many different arrangements and so many different, I would say, combinations of activities in a day. Yes. More importantly, A king's position is such that the reinforcement of an identity of a king is done constantly. Wherever he walks, people consider him like God. They would move away, they would make special arrangements. He comes to the center of everybody's attention wherever he goes. Or as a consequence, for him to step away from that identity and understand that he's a servant of Krishna is very difficult. If someone is insignificant, they have a lot of room in life for them to move away from their life and allow Krishna to come in. But if someone is very significant, then there's a challenge where they basically would be put into a circumstance where they're constantly going to be in the center of everybody's life. And it becomes very difficult for such a person to move away and bring Krishna to the center of their lives. That is why a king is not considered to be at a very great advantage while performing devotional service. Mahaprabhu did not want to meet Pratap Rudra, the king of Orissa at that point in time. He said he's a king, he's a Vishayi, he is basically materialistic. What is it which I can gain by meeting with him? What is the point in meeting with him? Why? Because reinforcing the identity of being a servant of the Lord is very difficult when you are a king, because you're always going to be in the center of everybody's attention in life. People are constantly going to keep you in the center. So in this situation, the Pandavas, they were very fortunate. They were very fortunate because the entire arrangement for the future was made by Krishna. When Krishna is making an arrangement in your life, that arrangement will not interfere with Krishna consciousness. Krishna does not interfere with Krishna consciousness. He doesn't. Our plans can interfere with Krishna consciousness. Krishna's plans cannot interfere with Krishna consciousness. This is very powerful and very important to know. Krishna will make the arrangements, and when he makes the arrangements, all kinds of arrangements will work out. And it is so nice that it will not interfere with Krishna consciousness. This is the beauty of Krishna's arrangements. So there's a second principle which is being taught here. Now, they also mention the fact that the duration of life of all these kings who died in Mahabharata was reduced because they mishandled and disrespected Draupadi. We spoke last time, when someone kills children, when someone is performing adharma where they assault women, when they assault children, when they assault people who need protection, when they assault brahmanas, then understand that the longevity of the person is going to go down. They can't live for long after that. It will keep coming down. Why is it so? Because this whole aspect of protecting brahmanas, protecting children, this all falls in the category of goodness. It is goodness that preserves. When goodness itself is attacked, then there's a lot of strife in life. There's a lot of strife in life. There are a lot of challenges in life when people who are categorically represented by the mode of goodness are assaulted. For example, when there's rampant cow killing, the cow is an animal in the mode of goodness. When there's such rampant cow killing, it results in all kinds of psychological issues and mental issues and depression, so on and so forth, because you're assaulting the mode of goodness. It's very easy for people to get situated in the mode of passion, ignorance. And mental issues follow. There's anxiety, there's depression. It is just a matter of course. So this is an example where they insulted Queen Draupadi. They insulted her. They were trying to disrobe her, humiliate her. And that practically took away the longevity of the Kshatriyas who were present in that assembly. Their death was already done in that assembly. It was over. How many days and how many years they were going to be alive was already reduced. It was over. The moment they disrespected her. So this is very important principle. So old men, women, children, when proper arrangements are not made for them, then in general, such an enterprise, such an institution will come under attack. In general, there's destruction that is going to come. When brahmanas are disrespected, when brahmanas are insulted and they are basically sidelined, then such an institution in such particular family surroundings and kingdoms and places where these things happen, there's destruction which is just going to come. This is basically an invitation for Kali, there's an invitation for destruction to occur. That principle is being mentioned here. Yajayatva swamedastvam tribiruttamakalpakaihi tadyasapavanam dikshuhu satamanyorivantanot. Lord Sri Krishna caused 3 well-performed Ashwamedha Yagyas, horse sacrifices, to be conducted by Maharaj Yudhishthira, and thus caused his virtuous fame to be glorified in all directions, like that of Indra, who had performed 100 such sacrifices. This is again an important verse. Here, after the kingdom was returned back to King Yudhishthira, Krishna makes him perform the Ashwamedha Yagya. He makes him perform just 3 Ashwamedha Yagyas, just 3 Yagyas. And the benefit of 3 Yagyas done by Yudhishthira under the direction of Krishna is being equated to 100 such sacrifices made by Indra. 3 sacrifices under the protection of Krishna is being equated to 100 sacrifices made by Lord Indra himself. So this is basically showing how Krishna basically is Krishna's presence, following his instructions. Even if you do very little in that regard, when Krishna is involved, it gets amplified. Amantraya Pandu Putramscha Saine Yodava Samyutaha Dvaipayanadibir Vipraihi Pujitaihi Pratipujitaha. Lord Sri Krishna then prepared for his departure. He invited the sons of Pandu after having been worshipped by the Brahmanas headed by Srila Vyasadeva. The Lord also reciprocated greetings. Gantum Kritamatid Brahman Dwarakam Ratam Astitaha Upalebe Bidavantim Uttaram Bayavihvalam. As soon as he seated himself on the chariot to start for Dwaraka, he saw Uttara hurrying towards him in fear. See, her prayer, Sri Uttara's prayer, this is Abhimanyu's wife, this is Parīkṣit Maharaj's mother. Such an extraordinary personality. At a very young age, 16 or 17 years of age, she loses her husband. She becomes a very young widow. Then she has this misfortune of being attacked whilst carrying in her womb her son. And then, even before she could depart, her son departs. You can just imagine, her life is filled with challenges, in one sense. What is extraordinary about this verse, the next verse? Her husband was Krishna's nephew, and he gets killed. Abhimanyu was Subhadra's son. He was Subhadra Maya's son. He was the son of Krishna's sister. He gets killed on the battlefield. So she, for not one moment, thinks that what can Krishna do? She does not even hesitate. She's not even thinking for a moment, thinking, what is Krishna capable of doing? What can Krishna do? He didn't protect my husband. He didn't really do anything for my husband. My husband died anyways. What can he do for my son? Maybe I should do something to protect my son. She doesn't think. She's running towards him. And what does she say? She says, Uttaro vacha pahi pahi mahayogin deva deva jagatpate nanyam tvad abhayam pashye yatta mrityuhu parasparam. Uttara said, O Lord of Lords, Lord of the universe, you are the greatest of mystics. Please protect me, for there is no one else who can save me from the clutches of death in this world of duality. Quite extraordinary from someone who has just lost someone. She has just seen her husband's brothers dying, and she has seen Krishna he's there, but he could have protected them, but why didn't he protect them? These doubts are not there. She's just running towards them. Abhidravati mam isha sarastaptayaso viboho kamam dahatu mam nata mama me garbo nipatyatam. O my Lord, you're all powerful. A fiery iron arrow is coming towards me fast. My Lord, let it burn me personally, if you so desire, but please do not let it burn and abort my embryo. Please do me this favor, my Lord. She's basically seeing the Brahmastra fired by Ashwatthama. This goes back to the previous chapter. Krishna knew that this is someone, Ashwatthama, whose consciousness has gone down. He is grief-stricken because his father is dead. He is grief-stricken because he has lost the battle, and he is very skilled in warfare, and he is also being humiliated if you forgive him and send him away, because a Kshatriya feels very humiliated. Now, such an enemy is a dangerous enemy to have. Someone who is powerful, whose consciousness is improper, such an enemy who also carries a lot of enviousness because he's humiliated, such an enemy is very dangerous. Krishna knew this in the previous chapter. He was telling Arjuna, kill him. Bhima could see it. He said, kill this guy. You should not let him go. Don't let him go, because he can do things to us. They could see it because they're strategists. But the very soft-hearted Arjuna, Draupadi, Yudhishthira, they forgave him. Krishna, because he's the Supreme Lord and he's confident of protecting Parīkṣit, he gave them the free will, saying, okay, you decide what you want to do. And when you forgive someone who has hurt you, it is also easy for you to heal. So Krishna also allowed them to move forward in that manner, because he could see that if by forgiving Ashwatthama, Mother Draupadi and the Pandavas, they could start healing inside. By not forgiving, they would be holding on to this fire, and as a consequence, they would also feel very hurt. So he saw that this was a very important process of grief, where they allowed the Pandavas to forgive. As a consequence, they can move forward. There's closure. Now, this Ashwatthama, he releases the Brahmastra again, this time to kill Parīkṣit. Sutta uvacha upadarya vachastasya bhagavan bhaktavatsalah apandavam idam kartum draune rastram abudyata. Sutta Goswami said, having patiently heard her words, Lord Sri Krishna, who is always very affectionate to his devotees, could at once understand that Ashwatthama, the son of Dronacharya, had thrown the Brahmastra to finish the last life in the Pandava family. Text 12. Tarhi evata munishreshtaha pandavaha panchasayakan atmanobi mukan deeptan alakshayas sastrani upaddaduhu. Or foremost amongst the great thinkers, Muni Shaunaka. This is a conversation by Sutta Goswami. He is talking to Shaunaka Rishi. Seeing the glaring Brahmastra proceeding towards them, the Pandavas took up their 5 respective weapons. Vyasanam vikshyatat tesham ananya vishayatmanam sudarshnena swastrena swanam raksham vyadad vibhuhu. The Almighty Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, having observed that there's a great danger was befalling his unalloyed devotee, who are fully surrendered souls, he at once took up his Sudarshan disc to protect them. The Sudarshan Chakra is an extension of the Lord, Mahakala himself. The whole, when we talk about Krishna as the time factor, in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna calls him time I am. He says, I'm time. Krishna says, I'm time. When he talks about time, he is referring to himself as the Sudarshan Chakra. It is the wheel of time. It is supreme. It is supreme. It is a supreme weapon. When Sudarshan Chakra has made up a determination, no one can stand in front, because this is basically the wheel of time. This is the material time factor as far as this planet is concerned. This particular material existence is concerned, or material universes are concerned. In the spiritual sky, the Sudarshan Chakra is non-different from the Lord. It's practically treated as an incarnation, because the potency is the same in the spiritual sky. Because there it is supreme time, there isn't a distinction. When the Sudarshan Chakra descends into the material world, it takes on a very fiery nature of being material time, which is all destructive, which cannot be fought by anyone. This entire creation, including all Lord Brahmas who are managing this entire creation, they succumb and they fall into the plan laid out by the Sudarshan Chakra. This whole time factor, the wheel of time, is the Sudarshan Chakra. So basically, Krishna's favorite weapon, Sudarshana, that protects the devotees. So we are protected from supreme time. That's the reason why how long is a devotee going to be on the planet is not something which is easily discernible. It is not something which we can even determine, because the entire time factor, which is how long someone is supposed to be on the planet, what is to happen, what is not to happen, is decided for by the Sudarshan Chakra, based on Leela, based on what the devotee is supposed to do for the Lord, All kinds of arrangements are being made by the Sudarshan Chakra. This is supreme time. This is the time factor. You see, it is not something which is not even supervised by the great demigods, the time factor himself, Kala. Antastha sarvabhutanam atma yogeshwaro harihi somayayana vridodgarbham vairatyah kurutantave. The Lord of supreme mysticism, Sri Krishna, resides within everyone's heart as the Paramatma. As such, just to protect the progeny of the Kuru dynasty, he covered the embryo of Uttara by his personal energy. So Krishna basically became a kavach for Uttara's womb so that nothing happens. Yadyapi astram brahmasiras tva amogam chapratikayam vaishnavam teja asadya samasamyad brigudvaha. O Shaunaka, although the supreme Brahmastra weapon released by Ashwatthama was irresistible and without check or counteraction, it was neutralized and foiled when confronted by the strength of Vishnu. So, the supreme weapon of Brahmastra, that basically could not act because the Sudarshan Chakra was invoked. The supreme time factor, nothing can basically stand in the way. So even if you cast one of the biggest weapons from the perspective of mysticism, Brahmastra is practically the most powerful of weapons. When you cast that, the Sudarshan Chakra basically has the ability to decide whether the Brahmastra can affect or cannot affect, because it is the time factor. This is a supreme time factor. Yes, the Brahmastra is most destructive. It cannot miss. It will destroy. Yes, all of that is true. But if Krishna decides that is the time factor, then nothing can happen. This is being proven here, that even if you have calamities which are extraordinary, it doesn't really interfere. In the 7th canto, when we go to the 7th canto, we'll study this factor in detail. Because Lord Narasimhadev, when he appears and he kills Hiranyakashipu, he sits on the throne of Hiranyakashipu. There has been no incarnation of the Lord who sits on the throne after killing the enemy. So many kings were disabled, but then no one really sat on the throne. Narasimhadev practically sits there. He practically sits there, and then some of our acharyas have opinion that he makes the throne auspicious for Prahlad Maharaj because it is almost like Maha, and he gives it to Prahlad Maharaj to occupy. More importantly, the message which was being conveyed by Narasimhadev when he sits on the throne is, he was trying to say that the time of the events in a kingdom, are being governed by the king. The king is considered to be equal to God because the king has authority to put someone to death. Yeah, he can basically say, kill this person. He can say, give this person riches, give them opulence, give them a job. He can do so much. He has so much control, a king. So Krishna, basically, a king is considered to be a time factor in a kingdom. So Narasimhadev basically says that when my devotees are involved, I will even remove the highest control and highest thing that can come as an obstacle towards them existing. I will even come and change everything. I will uproot an entire government if I have to. I will put back something more favorable for my devotees. This message was given by Narasimhadev in the 7th canto. This message where if all you want to do is you want to chant, I will remove all obstacles, no matter how complex the obstacles themselves could be. Mam stahi etad ascharyam sarvashtramaye chute ya idam mayaya devaya ya idam mayaya devya sujati avati hanti ajaha. O Brahmanas, do not think this to be especially wonderful in the activities of the mysterious and infallible personality of Godhead. By his own transcendental energy, he maintains and annihilates all material things, although he himself is unborn. So for him to protect Uttara is not a big deal. Don't really make a big deal out of it. That is being spoken of by the sages. Brahma tejo vinirmuktir atma jaihi sah krishnaya prayana bhimukham krishnam idam aha pratasatihi. Thus saved from the radiation of the Brahmastra, Kuntī, the chaste devotee of the Lord, and her 5 sons and Draupadi addressed Lord Krishna as he started for home. So this is basically the prayers of Mother Kunti. We will come into it subsequently. Yeah, we will come into it subsequently. In this next week's discussion, we will discuss Mother Kunti's prayers as a specific chapter, But what I wanted to do today was to set the stage. Basically, what we wanted to do was go through the 8th chapter and understand how this is an extension of the previous chapter. One problem after another. How do you process problems? How do you process life? So we started talking about the theme. The theme of this chapter for the Pandavas is that they were extraordinarily engaged with Krishna throughout their existence. Kirtaniya Sadahari was exactly what they were doing. They were able to engage in Kirtaniya Sadahari because they were very humble. Even though they were such extraordinarily potent Kshatriyas, they were emperors of the world, they were very humble. What is the quality of humility that is being seen in the Pandavas? The quality of humility that is being seen in the Pandavas, very specifically, is their ability to accept life. Their ability to accept life, to digest life, to accept life and say, this is your arrangement, Krishna. This ability is humility. They're able to tolerate such a situation. And then they're also very courageous in doing what is right under every circumstance. There's great deliberation. So the theme that we wanted to talk about was the theme that is extraordinarily important to us. We were wanting to talk about how to process life. If you do not know how to process events in life, then it's very difficult because there will be so many events. The making and the breaking of a devotee is dependent on their ability to process an event in their life. There are so many events that happen in life. How do you process it? What do you gain out of it? What do you do? How do you take all of that and then apply it carefully? This is being seen. This is basically what we need to understand from these 2 chapters. In the next week, we will go into a discussion on the prayers of Mother Kunti. We will want to understand it more deeply. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll see if you have any questions. Any questions or comments? I can't hear you. It's coming up it's very broken. Mataji, I can't hear you. Sorry.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This Krishna
Yes,
Vani.
Haribol.
Prabhuji, Haribol. I think somebody is trying to ask you something.
Yes. I think you could ask, Mataji. I think someone was trying to ask and they couldn't, or maybe it was a...
Okay. Prabhu, you know, like in Sikshastakam, the Trinadapi Sunichina verse, you know, there is some confusion for me because sometimes, you know, in the second line, first line we say Trinadapi Sunichina, Naror Api Sahishnuna. That's what we say, but you know, sometimes I hear some people, or as you know, like yourself also use Eva Sahishnuna. So which one is the correct?
Taror Eva Sahishnuna.
Tarar Eva Sahishnuna. Because in the songbooks, it's always we gone through Taror Api Sahishnuna. So what is the difference in Api and Eva? Can you please explain that?
No, I need to look into it. Maybe what we can do is I will post it to the WhatsApp group, Mataji.
Okay.
Yeah, because the point I'm trying to make is basically there is Sanskrit is very contextual, and because it is contextual, it has to be looked at in the context of the entire meaning of what is being conveyed.
Okay.
So this technicality of using one word versus another in a context which is very similar, I would distinguish it. I will write about it in WhatsApp. I just want to clarify something. I'll write about it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Not at all.
Because I had this question for a long time, and as you also mentioned it, I said, let me ask and clarify that. Thank
Sure.
you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, I just want to know, how will we know that what is happening in our life, it's Krishna's plan, or it's our karma, or it's our plan going on in our life?
Can you hear me now?
Sure. Basically,
Can you
we have been
hear
given
me now?
5 most important aspects of bhakti. So we have been given sadhu sangha, we have been given nama smaran, nama kirtan, we have been given Bhagavat Shravan, hearing of Bhagavatam, then Mathura Vas, and also being able to worship the deity. Now, what we need to do is, if we want to find out if something is our arrangement or Krishna's arrangement, we have to see if the arrangement that we make, is it helping us with the 5 principles of bhakti, the main important angas of bhakti? After we have made the arrangement, is it going to help us with chanting? Is it going to help us with sangha? Is it going to help us with serving Srimad Bhagavatam, the deities? Or is it making it even more difficult? Then we would know whether it is Krishna's arrangement or it is our arrangement. Because Krishna, he wouldn't interfere with Krishna consciousness to such an extent. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that is how we need to temper and understand our arrangements versus Krishna's arrangements.
Okay, fine. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Sure.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu,
Hare Krishna.
can you hear me?
Actually, you're breaking up, Mataji. It's actually breaking up. It's very, I can't hear you. Sorry.
I think, Prabhu, nobody can hear Mataji, because I think there is some
Audio.
Yeah.
Mataji, if you go down, I think it is Kanchan Mataji. If you go down, do you see chat? You can click on chat and then you can type your question instead of talking. Then I can answer. You can just type your question. Anything else? As we will wait for Mataji to type, but any other question, any other comment?
Hare Krishna, Srivrindavan Prabhu.
Haribo.
Haribo, I just have a question a little bit not related to this chapter, if it's okay.
Sure, go ahead, please.
Because when we're looking at planetary systems in Bhagavatam, there is mention of Rakshasas and demons, and they're kind of on higher than a few planets. So I just wanted to understand what's the difference between Rakshasas and demons, and obviously, yeah.
So you're basically talking about the Bilva Swarga that is between the earthly planet and the heavens. Yeah, there is a big.
Yes.
See, let's have this understanding. Those with subtle bodies are more powerful than those with gross bodies. We have a gross body. Someone who has a body which is more subtle than ours is definitely more powerful than us because they can make us do things. Yeah? A ghostly existence, for example, a ghost. Even though a ghost doesn't have an opportunity of gratification of senses, etc., etc., the ghost, for example, can travel without effort from one place to another. It can travel in the mental channel. Yeah? So there's opportunity if someone is subtle to be able to have more freedom in being able to move forward. The demons, the Rakshasas, they are definitely more powerful because they are subtle. They're very, very powerful compared to a human being because they don't have a gross body. They have a body which is more subtle than the human body. As a consequence, they have a body which is more subtle. They don't have a body which is as gross as our body. So they are far more powerful. It is like, for example, someone being in our room. You can't see them. They can see you. Now tell me, who is more powerful? If someone is in our room and they can see us, we can't see them. They are surely more powerful. If someone can just walk in through a closed door and come into a home and sit in front of us and we wouldn't even know, are they powerful? They are powerful. So the point being that the Rakshasas, the demons, they are more powerful than us because we are limited by the human body. The good fortune of the human body is that because we have been given a body which can frustrate, it is also giving us an opportunity to develop a sense of material exhaustion. The exhaustion that can come in a human body is far greater than the exhaustion that can come in a demigod body. The demigods don't have problems with their bodies. They don't have problems with health. They don't. So why would they become frustrated? Where is the opportunity for Krishna consciousness? But we become frustrated because our bodies are not subtle, they're gross. And because it's a gross body, we become very frustrated by our attempts. So that's the difference. So what I was wanting to say is they're superior in terms of strength. They're superior in terms of their powers. There's no doubt. Yeah? But that's the difference between us and them. I don't know if this answered your question. Did it answer your question?
Yes, and also like there is because Rakshasas and demons are a little bit on different platform. So I wanted to see what's the difference between Rakshas.
Are you basically saying, are you asking me if a Rakshasa is different from a demon?
Yes, because we're kind of on that diagram, we're on different platform a little bit. And that's why I'm a bit confused. I thought Rakshasas is the same as demons, but in there it shows it's different.
Well, basically, the point is that if you're going to talk about it in Sanskrit, then we can surely classify them into different aspects. But if you're going to say that there is someone who is a Rakshasa and there's a demon, then you're talking about English. There really isn't much of a classification. Does it make sense? Yeah? That doesn't make sense to me. Do you understand? It is more like a mistake rather than anything else.
Okay, so they kind of say in a way,
Yeah.
it's just a
Yeah, you can generalize. You can generalize that if you just want to call them Rakshasas, so be it. If you want to call them demons, so be it. In Sanskrit, there are different classifications of these personalities. They belong to different places. Some of them exist in the upper plane. Some of them exist in the lower plane. There are so many different genealogies of whom they were born from. So there's all kinds of classification if you get into Sanskrit. So for example, there are two categories of ghosts in Sanskrit. One is called Preta and the other is called Pisacha. The Preta is a ghost where someone leaves the gross body, and the subtle body is called subtle body and the soul. When someone has just a subtle body, it's a ghost. That's called a Preta. A Preta is basically a personality who has left a human body, a gross body. A Pisacha, on the other hand, is almost the same, but the Pisachas have their own body. Do you understand? They are not just a human being out of a gross body. The Pisacha is a class by itself. They have their own body. They can cause a lot of interference in our plane. They are more dangerous. They are demoniac. Yeah. So I'm giving you a classification saying when you start talking Sanskrit, then you can classify them. They exist in the Bilva Swarga. They exist in the plane which is above us. They interfere like anything. You know, the Hindus, for example, I'm using the word Hindu to say an average Hindu. They worship Ganeshji, the remover of obstacles. You notice that in India, there's such a big festival for Ganesh, Lord Ganesh. He is the remover of obstacles. The particular reason for worshipping him is to control the influence of these demons from up there. They interfere with everything we do. To remove their influence, Ganeshji is worshipped, to remove the obstacles. When we use the word obstacles, they generally fall into this category of personalities whom we cannot see. Some of them are those who have left the gross body. Some of them are those who are more powerful. So in Sanskrit, you can classify them. But in English, if you say that this is a place for Rakshasas, that's a place for demons, then I wouldn't really be able to, I would say, accept that, I would say, classification, because they're not really being specific as to what kind of demons.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, as you know, Krishna Mataji's question further, you know, the
Yes.
ghosts, you know, as you say, Prabhuji, that they are more powerful, but also, you know, they do not have gross body. So they would like to enter in somebody's, you know, like gross body. But, you know, like when somebody gets frightened, they do enter in somebody's body. And sometimes some of the ghosts, you know, you don't see them, but they do harm people. So without a gross body, without a body, I still get confused at how they can harm somebody physically.
Ghosts don't harm. Basically, in most cases, ghosts don't harm. It's a misnomer. The Pisachas can harm.
Oh.
Ghosts cannot harm. They can influence you. They can cloud your thinking. They can occupy our body. You know, 50 or 20 or 30 of them can sit in one body like ours,
Mm-hmm.
and then make everything. You know, they will use up our resources, because the human body is also a network of nerves. It is a network which is flowing of nervous energy.
Mm-hmm.
If it is like, for example, if you connect too many appliances which are very powerful onto one electrical source, most likely the electrical source will collapse.
Yeah.
In a similar manner, when many of these personalities overwhelm us, then the person collapses, and then they basically get termed by medical doctors as having a nervous breakdown. They're having this breakdown, that breakdown, because this can happen. So the point I'm trying to make is that they overwhelm us, yeah, but they are not they don't have capacity for harming us. They overwhelm us. Sometimes they can influence us. They can give us suggestions. They can influence our thinking. We can sometimes start desiring things which we normally wouldn't. And we would start wondering, what is this? This is not my consciousness. We can be influenced from outside. That's true. But they can't harm us in any other way.
Okay.
Yeah. But there are distinctly personalities who are very harmful, who can cause harm. They can cause accidents. They can cause things like that. There are personalities who do that too on this plane.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Sure.
Hare Krishna, sorry, can I just clarify? You know, there is obviously not just devotees, but a lot of people with mental problems, maybe because of that as well. So as a devotee, for us, probably most powerful is chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. If somebody is not devotee and we want to help them and they're not ready to chant, is there anything we can do, or maybe just read Gita or something like they can do, what they can start the journey of protection from that?
Yeah, the most important and most powerful way of protecting and purifying a dwelling, a house, is to read Srimad Bhagavatam. Most powerful. Because it is Krishna personified. So you can do kirtan, you can read Srimad Bhagavatam, you can advise them not to eat meat, you can advise them on changing their diet and making it more sattvic. All of this can be done. The point I'm trying to make is that Srimad Bhagavatam is perhaps the most effective ways to do this. So, for example, if someone has this problem, then devotees could go, they could have a kirtan program, and they could read Srimad Bhagavatam for X number of days, taking turns.
Thank you.
This can be done. So, see, and also, Christina, one thing, we should also examine their faith and also tell them to do things within their faith as well. If, for example, if someone belongs to the Christian faith, then advise them based on what they could do in terms of, you know, improving, overall advise them on improving their diet. They should move closer to the mode of goodness. The effect of these personalities in the mode of goodness is very minimal. It is always better because our consciousness, if our frequency is the same as the personalities who are attacking us, they can influence us more easily. If our frequency is above them, they can't reach very easily because their consciousness is such that they can't influence us. So that is the other way of doing it, advising people to improve their consciousness by changing their diet, just living a life which is clean, waking up, having a bath. You'll be surprised that many people don't even do that properly, and they have issues. Very common culture of being clean and having a bath in the morning, wearing clean clothes, having a house which is clean. All of this basically helps immensely, but then telling them to first follow some basic principles and then introducing Krishna consciousness by way of basically reading Bhagavatam, doing kirtan. What would happen is if you were to read Bhagavatam, these things generally clear themselves out. And by doing this, what would happen is you would also be able to give faith.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is
Yes.
Krishnavani. Prabhuji, you said that, Mother Ganges water purifies, and by Ganges water we can give the oblations, but unfortunately we are living in London, so Ganges water is not easily available. So what is your advice? Like as you said, we purify, what you call, invite the holy rivers in our Achman pot, and
We can do that.
yeah,
We can do that. We can chant this Gange Yamunai Chaiva Godavari Saraswati Jalesmin Sannidhim Kuru.
yeah,
There is a prayer that can be done by the Brahmanas to invoke the presence of the holy rivers.
yeah.
Depending on the potency of the person, the holy rivers will enter into the pot. Yeah, that is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it basically is, what I'm saying is you could even basically, as I said, they have little, I think every temple sells little bottles of Ganga Jal.
Yeah.
They must, because I've seen them do it.
Put a drops of Ganges and
Yeah, put drops of water, put a few drops, and then use it for tilak. This is very powerful when you use it for tilak, because Ganga Jal basically is on your body.
Okay.
It's very powerful, actually.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Yes, you did mention that, so I said, let me clarify that.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Hare.
sure. Anything else? Okay, if there aren't any more questions, then we will end here and we will continue this chapter the following week. And the next week when we come, we will talk about the prayers of Mother Kuntī. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.